I first fell in love with theater, I suppose, when I started going to Cal State Long Beach as a theater major. I always knew when I was a kid that I really, really enjoyed acting, and the theater department was sort of the best way for me to utilize that and actually get to perform and, do the characters and tell stories, the type of thing that I like to do. I knew when I wanted to be part of the theater world when I started doing theater in Cal State Long Beach, because I just had always loved film and acting, and that's still something I really enjoy. And then doing the theater department and performing on plays was sort of like my first initial introduction to all that. And I had a really good time performing different productions and learning with my friends and fellow students. I think local theater is still relevant because it's important for communities to put on productions together. I just think it's something that everyone should get to be involved in, not just like a select few people. And I think the idea of people just in a local town saying like, "Hey, let's put on something for everyone here," is just I don't know. I think it's beautiful and really sweet, and theater should be for everybody. Theater is such a unique audience experience because it's different for like every performance is always going to be a unique experience. You never know what's going to happen. It could be a perfect performance. An actor could say something very different than they did in the previous performance. It's sort of when the audience goes in to see a specific theater performance, that was like their personal experience that no one else outside of that is ever really going to get or be able to recreate specifically. I first fell in love with writing. I started writing in classes because that's sort of the thing that they ask you to do. And then this is sort of really silly, but in middle school, I started really getting into writing fan fiction. It was just sort of fun to play with like all these characters that I like loved and was familiar with. And then that sort of continued to grow, and I attempted to write my own stories. And then theater, as I started to learn more about it, I took a playwriting class, and I wasn't really, it was a new medium for me. It wasn't something I had ever really thought about before, but as I took it, I learned that it was a really great way, like when I had a certain thought process or an emotion or feeling about something, either something that made me really happy or something in the world that sort of stressed me out or I didn't feel satisfied with, that was a really good medium to sort of express my feelings or present a story that could point out just the issues and opinions, and just, it was a good way to express myself. It's a really unique and effective form of writing. Up-and-coming actors is basically, it's an organization that's there to help up-and-coming actors, people who are in college or have gotten out of college and kind of just want to get their start out there. They have put on productions in the past. They've done a web series, they've done some plays, they've done some workshops. It's just sort of a good way if you're sort of struggling and want to put yourself out there, but a lot of people haven't been really giving you a chance. Like up-and-coming actors is there to like let you hone your craft and like learn more and like actually like get to participate. I love performing, and I love helping, and Tahirih was a part of up-and-coming actors. It had just started when we were in college, and I think the first time I participated, they asked me, I think it was called, the play was No Happy Color, and they asked me if I wanted to be in it, and then other plays happened, and they asked me to be in it, and I said yes, and it was just fun performing and getting to create art with them. Tahirih and I are best friends. We met at Cal State Long Beach. I think, our very first acting class. We didn't talk like immediately. She was more quiet and I talked like a lot. But like eventually we sort of came together as we had like more and more classes. And towards the end of like our college career, we both got really into writing. We didn't take writing classes together. We took them at different times, but we talked about that a lot, and we sort of realized that we had like a very similar sense of humor. We did take a comedy and improv class together, and we wrote like a ton of sketches together, some by ourselves as well, but we sort of became like a writing duo, especially when it comes to like things with a comedic element to it. And yeah, she's just a really like fun person to like riff off of. She's really good to like exchange ideas with, and like how do we take this and like make it funnier. And yeah, we just have like a very similar sense of humor, and she's very fun to work with. And then Dana, actually it's really funny. Dana, he was I took before he became a theater major at Cal State Long Beach, we happened to be like in a creative writing class together. I just took it as an elective, and then he was there. And then later, I think a couple semesters later, I saw him at the theater building, and I was like, "Hey, it's you." He's really cool. He's always he's really good at the technical stuff. Like I love writing and acting, but I feel like if I try to like touch a computer, if it's not for typing something, it's gonna explode on me. So he's really good at that. He's dedicated. He's a great director, stage manager. He's just very good at like orchestrating everything. And he was also in our improv group together. He wrote some sketches. He also did a lot of directing and organizing, and then we sort of like because our improv group unfortunately like sort of disbanded. But then he joined like up and coming actors, so that was sort of like we were still friends, but it was like a semi reunion of like working together. And when Tahirih and I were talking about how we really wanted to like put on this play, we were thinking like, you know, who would be a good person who like would be really good at like getting everyone to get excited and energized and willing to like improvise and like be willing to be in that sort of like creative space that can change, but at the same time is like very good at being on top of everything. And we both thought to ourselves, that's Dana. Heroes of the West was the very original idea came about because Tahirih and I were in an improv group called Upper Lower Middle Class, and I believe it was for our winter show, I had the idea. I just really wanted to do a Western, and I really wanted to do a Western, and she and I sort of came up with this concept because I wanted to like poke fun at like the silly like fights that they have, and like the stereotypical like showdown that always happens. That's sort of how the idea developed. But those are like two guys, and Tahirih and I were like, how are we going to be in this sketch? And we started riffing off each other, and then we sort of came up with this idea of like there's Hank the hero, and then there's Toothnose the villain, but then there's Betsy and Daisy, like two women who actually just want to help and fight, and they don't really do like all the like the silly like show-offy stuff. Like they just want to get like the job done. And you know, we made sure we put all like the humor into all that, and the sketch was like a giant success. People seemed to really, really like it and think it was funny. And as time passed, Tahirih and I decided that like, why don't we take this like little story, like little sketch, and make it into like a full-fleshed play. The main story arc of Heroes of the West is there's the hero, Hank the Hunter. He's a typical Western hero. Always saves the day. Everyone loves him. He's a bit of a macho man. And then there's Toothnose, like the dirty villain who's always like tying up women to train tracks or like robbing banks and all that stuff. And Betsy and Daisy, the main characters, like he's their hero. They really want to fight alongside him and be him. But it's the Old West, and they're women, and they're expected to help on the farm and get married eventually, which isn't something that really interests them. So eventually they talk to Hank and ask if they can be his apprentices, which he accepts, but really more for selfish reasons, that he doesn't really expect them to help him fight at all. It's more just like to help him do chores. But as time progresses, Betsy and Daisy start to realize that Hank isn't really the hero that they thought he was. Betsy more so than Daisy. Daisy really, really looks up to Hank. And then they finally decide that like they're gonna do it themselves. Like they're gonna stop Toothnose because Hank hasn't, and he doesn't let them fight. So then they finally do stop Toothnose, and Hank gets upset and jealous and attempts to sabotage that by letting him out. And then they make up in the end. So yeah, it's I guess Hank sort of just realizes like his selfishness, and Betsy and Daisy, me and Tahirih's characters, get to really like become like step into the roles of being heroes and like get to fully like realize like the dream and vision of like the woman that they wanted to be in their hometown. For me, the underlying message of Heroes of the West would be that women are just as capable of doing everything that men can do, and that there's no reason to treat either side as if they were unequal to each other. I want the audience to definitely have a great time when they see the play. Like, I want them to laugh. I want them to think about like all the offensive things that I guess the town and Hank and Toothnose sort of shoot out at Betsy and Daisy when they tell them that they can't do the things that Hank does. They tell them that they can't be heroes. They can't do what men do. I just want people to think about like the traditional like male and female roles that were like expected back then, and like how that's changed in the present, but also how that kind of hasn't changed. I think the Southern California community should see Heroes of the West because it's a really fun and entertaining play, but it's also a sharp observation of gender dynamics and how they play out today.